This is Pat Torming. Today we're going to be taking a look at how do I win forms using links with files. Now this came about because I was working for a client. We needed to keep track of the most recently accessed files in a certain directory. And I got looking at it, and I know how to do it the, old-fashioned way. So I thought I'd give it a try with links. And I'll tell you, it worked out very quickly and very easily using link with files. So to get started, I just have a fairly vanilla-looking form here. I put a list box for our display and a big button called button 1 that'll actually get us started doing all the work. I'll click on the button. What I'd like to do here is have a little function of some kind that's just going to go out and get my JPG files for me. I'm going to take them from the pictures subdirectory, and so I'll just make up a name called, I don't know, JPG files. Now, of course, I haven't got anything that does that yet, but I will in just a second. Create a little sub. Okay, now what I need to do first is I need to go find out where we do keep the pictures. And we're very lucky in VB because it's an easy way to do that. So I'm going to dim up the search directory. And that's going to be equal to my .computer, .file system, .special directories, .my pictures. Okay, and that'll just return the name of the directory I want to search for these particular files. Now I need a place to actually, an opportunity to go get the files. So I'm just going to get right into the link. So I'm going to say files equal from file in a new I'm just going to stop there for a second, let him complain. And he tells me he doesn't know what that is. But he says I need to import the file, the system.io. That makes him a little happier. Now, of course, he wants to know where do I want to go get that from. And that's my search dir. And when I get there, what would I like to get? So I'm going to tell it to get the files. Now here, if I wanted to, I could put in a prototype of what the template of what the file is supposed to look like. But we'll just do it the linq way. Put in a line carriage return there. And in this case, I'm going to tell it that I want it to get my files and order them by the file name. So I can say order by, and then it's going to be file.name. Now this is particularly interesting because it knows that I'm pulling back something called the file as a directory search from get files. So it understands what that's going to be, that this is actually a file info object. So I'll say order by file name, where in this case I can put in my file condition .name and tell it to contain something. And of course that's where I want to put my oops. Okay, now I can just tell it now select file. And that's all I need to do to get the link to go get it for me. Kind of interesting, huh? So if you hover over this for a second, and so you can see what type it is, it turns out that it's returning to me something called an IEnumerable of system.io.fileinfo, which is of course exactly what I asked for. So I don't really want to assign the IEnumerable back to my list box. Listbox1.dataSource. But I can tell it I'd like it to go get the files and kick them over to files plural and kick them over to a list. Now let's see what that does for us. Hit the button, and I have them almost instantly. Pretty good, huh? Well, we're just getting warmed up. There's a possibility that you don't actually want everything about all the files. Maybe I want to get a little bit more detail than just the the name of the file. I might want to get, in my case, I was looking for the file last access date. So now we're getting a little trickier. Instead of just saying I want to go after the file as a file system object, a file info object, I want to go after something of my own design. Hold that thought. Now what I'm really looking for is a little class that I can stuff full of the things of interest to me, and I've whipped this up and stuck it over here in my cut and paste region. And I'll give you a quick tour of what it is, but it's not this lesson to discuss the class. What I have is a private class called listItem, where when I new it up, I allow it to pull in both the file name and the last date, which is the two things I need to keep track of for this particular guy. I want to make sure that my recent date comes back as being a date, so I don't have to screw around with that, and make sure that the name is a public, so that implies a get set. Now, I've deliberately decided to override the toString, and every time you make your own class, you probably do want to override the toString to avoid the default behavior of whatever toString means to the class you inherit from. So I'm overriding this, and I'm saying what I want it to do is return to me the name and the recent date, and it's going to be in a string format, and that little d there means using a short date format. With me so far? We didn't do anything in linq yet. That's just to give me a class to put things in, and you'll have your own classes, I'm sure. Now this time I'm just going to comment this out, and I'll go for the more elaborate one. I'm going to tell it what I'd like it to do is use name and date. And of course there isn't such thing, so I have to write a little method for that. Clean that up some. There. Now essentially what I'm going to do is the same thing. I'm going to grab this little nugget of code I have here. All I want to do is change it out so that I load up, instead of this thing, which is the file info objects, I want to load up my own class. So my search directory is still okay, but I want to dimension my file. Yeah, I want to dimension my files as being my collection of files. And this is where it comes in to be kind of interesting. I'm going to use IEnumerable of. By specifying that, I'm going to get something that you could iterate through, which is, of course, kind of necessary if I want to put it in my list. And I'm going to tell it this time I want it to use my list item. Okay, now I can take this out of here because it's already been dimensioned once, and it'll complain, of course, and it should. And now it's going to complain to me that says, hey, guy, this isn't what you're returning. You're returning system.io file info. Now all this is still good to me. It's only this question right here where I'm saying select file that I can get into trouble. So what I want to do here is I'll make a new line for it. And I'll tell it that I want to actually select something that's a new list item, which is the class I created. And it has a new constructor. So I can tell it I want it to do file name and file last access time. And that made him happy. So for that simple little change, what I have now is that this guy is returning my own class, which is the list item class, and it's going to return an enumeration of it so that I actually end up with a list here. And we'll make one more change. I said I want to keep track of which ones are the last used. So I'll say file dot last access time, and we'll make it descending. Now, of course, I still could have done this by going in and getting my own collection of get files and gone through and sorted and all that, but isn't this much neater to do it in linq? We'll run that code now. Hit the magic button. And as you see, I have the return that's coming directly back from the class that I wrote when I overwrote the toString. This is Pat Tormey, and you've been looking at how do I win forms using linq with files. And I'll tell you, it's pretty straightforward and easy once you get the hang of it.